Hello, computer animation students. Today I'm going to be showing a video on how to do the locker lock animation. So I'm just going to share my screen with you so you can see my Blender screen here, and then we will start on this assignment. So once again, as always, we want to make sure that we save our file first. So we're going to click on File, Save As. We're going to go to our C drive where hopefully you've made a computer animation folder there, and I will call this assignment Robot Animation. Sorry, not robot animation, locker lock animation. And then I will save that, and so that's saved in here. So basically what I need to do now is I need to get into orthographic view, so that's basically 5, pressing 5 on the numpad key. And I'm going to go into top view, so that's number 7 on the numpad key, and then I'm going to delete out my cube. Now, I absolutely 100% need to be in my origin. That's the meaning that the 3D cursor is in the intersection between the X, Y, and Z axis. So if I happen to have clicked away and not been in my origin, once again, to get back to the origin, you Shift C in object mode, and that will bring us back to the origin. So what I would like to do now is I'd like to add a circle in object mode, and while I add it, when it comes up on the left here, I have some options to change it. So I'm going to change my vertices to 16 vertices instead, and I'm going to change my radius to 9. So 9 is 9 times bigger than it currently was, so we're going to have to zoom out a bit to sort of see this again. So I've got a large circle here now, but once again, a circle is a two-dimensional object, so I need to go into front view, so 1 on the numpad to get into front view, and I'm going to then go into edit mode, and I'm going to now try and extrude this up. So to extrude up on a circle or any other object, I need to have it in vertice selection, and I then need to press E to extrude, and I'm just going to extrude up, and it's maybe, hopefully you can see on here, it's 4 grid lines up, 4 grid lines up. And so I'm going to go 4 grid lines up, and I'm going to press Z to lock into place so it goes straight, and then I'm going to click here. Now I'm going to change it to wireframe so I can see kind of through the object here, because what I want to do now is after I click with the left button of my mouse to lock this into place 4 grid lines up, I'm going to ES, so press ENS, and then I'm just going to bring this in a slight little bit. So this is kind of like what we did with our lighthouse. So I'm going to click this in here a little bit, click with the left button of my mouse. Now I'm going to just simply press E and Z to lock into place and go down 1 grid line. And now when I get to this point here, I'm going to E and I'm going to S, and I'm going to bring it in. And what I've done so far, just so you see, is I've given a bit of created a locker base, and basically I've sort of indented in the face here. And now I just need to close this up. So I've ES, and I'm bringing this in, but now to get it to come together, I need to, in edit mode, W, press W on the keyboard, and then merge at center. So that's what it looks like, and just so we can see in solid view, what we see now is this sort of face. But I have an open face at the bottom, so what I need to do is I'm going to go back into wireframe. I'm going to go into front view, and I'm going to A to deselect all. I'm going to B to box select, and I'm going to select the whole bottom part. So I just want to make sure I got it all selected, which I do, and then I can E, S, and I'm going to bring it in, and then once again, I'm going to W, merge at center. And so what I see here then is if I go back into solid view, I now have a sort of the locker base sort of created here. So now I'm going to go into top view. I'm going to go back into wireframe, and I'm just going to click on face selection. So this choice here. And what I want to do now is I want to select this sort of this front part of the locker, and because I want to separate it so I can give it a different material, a black color. So to circle select, I press C in edit mode, and I'm going to just zoom out, scroll wheel out, so I can get the circle bigger because I need to cover those dots. And I then click on it, and it will select that part there. I can press escape, and now I should just have that. Now I got too much of it, so I'm going to A to deselect, and I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to try selecting that one more time. So I'm going to circle select, and I'm going to escape out of my circle selection, and I'm getting both the bottom and the top, which I don't want. So if I have that happen, what I can do is I can just go to top view again, and I could, if I wanted to, I could just individually select these pieces of the pie by shift right clicking as well. So if that were to happen to you, just like it did to me, it shouldn't normally, but if I'm getting both the top and the bottom, which I don't want, then I can do this. So I've got the bottom here, a bit of this as well. So I want to just select these faces. I want these top ones all selected, and I'm just going to left click or right click on these two bottom ones so I get those ones unselected. So I want to make sure that these bottom ones are not selected. So I'm going to deselect those. So I just want the top face selected. And now when I've got the top face selected, I can press P and I'm going to choose selection and I'm going to separate that out. So now if I come back into object mode and I go into solid view so I can sort of look at this again, what I have is I have the circle, which is my base, and I have circle 01, which is my face. So remember, we can select the circle and I can give this a name so it makes more sense. So I click in here and I type in and I call this my base. That will remind me that that's the base of my lock. And if I click here, this would remind me that this is the face of my lock. Okay. Now, when I have my face selected, I want to go into material here in object mode, and I'm going to click on new, and I'm just going to go to the diffuse color, and I'm going to take the grayscale down so I can make that black. So what I now have is a black sort of locker face, and then the rest of the locker is that sort of typical gray that you would see. So I'm going to go into top view again, and I'm going to bring this back out a little bit so it's easier for us to see everything. And I'm going to go into wireframe again just so we can sort of see things easier. And what I want to do is I want to position my cursor around here. And I'm going to go into front view just to make sure that my cursor is in the right spot, and it's not right now, because what I want is and I'm just going to turn this off, click on this trident to get this off. I want to make sure my cursor is above my face here, my locker face. It can't be down here, it has to be up here. And then I'm going to go back into top view, and now if I were to add some text, what I can do is when I add the text, if I want to now make a number 0, so 0 for my lock, I need to go into edit mode, and then I can backspace out this text value, and then I can put in the number 0 instead. And then I go back into object mode, and if I turn on my translate manipulator, I can then position my text where I want it to be, which is about right here. And then I'm going to go down, and I'm going to click around here, and I'm going to do the same thing again. So I'm going to add text. I'm going to go into edit mode. I'm going to type in 15. I'm going to go back into object mode, and I'm just going to position this down again. And once again, I'm moving between edit and object mode by pressing the tab key right now because it's a little faster for me to do. So here now I'm going to position around here, and I'm going to click on add text again, and I'm going to go into edit mode, and I'm going to backspace out the text, and I'm going to type in the number 30. Go back into object mode and just position this where I would like it to be. And then likewise right around here and add text. And I'm gonna go into edit mode, backspace out, type in 45, go back into object mode and position it where I want. So what I should see when I come back out of wireframe and into solid is I should see my 4 numbers, and those are the start of my locker face. But what I really want is all those little lines that go around the perimeter that indicate between 0 and 15 and 15 and 30 and so forth. So let's take a look at how we can do that. So in object mode, I'm going to go back into wireframe here. And what I want to do to make a little line is probably the easiest way is I could click up here and just in front view, make sure once again my cursor is above my locker face, which it is. And I'm going to then click on add mesh cube. Now clearly this cube is too big, but I could use the scale tool and I could scale this much, much thinner, and I could make it a little bit shorter, and then in front view I could make it a lot thinner. So, but I still want this to be above the face, so that's good where it is there. And so now I could position this maybe a little bit up here, a little bit further up. And so it looks good, and it should be lined up right on the y-axis. Now what I want to do is I want to replicate this line, and I want to replicate it all the way around the locker face. So I want to spin it around. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to make sure that my cursor is right smack in the middle. And that's why it was so important that we started to circle off in the origin so that I can now spin it around this origin, and it will give me a perfect spin. So when I want to do a spin, what I need to do is I need to have my object selected that I want to spin, and then I need to go into edit mode. I need to still make sure my object is selected, that my cursor is in the proper spot to spin it around it. And then I simply need to go over to spin. And I need to choose the spin option. And I'm going to choose 60 steps, because I want 60 lines. And it's 360 degrees. So now if I come into object mode, and I go into solid view, what I see is I not only see my numbers, but I see my actual lines that go with it. Now the next thing I need to do is I need to add a spinner in the middle. So what I want to do here is I'm going to, in top view and in object view, I'm going to go back into wireframe again just to sort of see what I'm at. And I want to be right smack in the origin, which I am right now. And so I can simply click on add mesh circle. Now, I don't want my circle to be 9 radius. I want it to be a 1 radius. I do want it to have 16 vertices, and I don't want the fill to be nothing. I would like it to be this middle choice, this Nigon, which will fill it in. And so now if I go into front view here, so press 1 on the numpad to get in front view, I need to go into edit mode. And in here, I need to make sure I'm not in face selection, but in vertice selection. Otherwise, my extrude won't work. So I'm going to press E to extrude up, and I'm going to go up 1 whole extra grid line up there. So about here. Now, at this point here, what I have is a circle, okay? And I want to deselect all, and I'm going to choose face selection instead. And I'm going to go and I'm going to scroll around here, and I'm going to try and select this face right over here. So this face right over here, that's right sort of directly opposite the 15. And I'm going to go into top view. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull this out. I'm going to pull this out. And what we see is we end up looking at something that looks kind of like a spinner. And so if I go back into object mode and now into solid view, what we see is we see not only my locker base, but my numbers, my lines, and my spinner. So it's looking pretty good. The only thing we have missing now is my actual locker hook. So I'm just going to shift scroll wheel down a little bit so I can move my screen down a little bit. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to position in object mode my cursor right around here. And I'm positioning it here for 2 reasons. One, I want it to be on the same line as the first sort of grid line above my locker lock, but I also want it to be a little bit in from the outside perimeter of my lock so that I can put this lock in and it's not going to kind of be sitting outside of my base of my lock. So right around here. And now I'm going to make a little circle to create my lock from using the spin tool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, in object mode, while my cursor is here, I'm going to click on add mesh circle. Now I'm going to get a 1 radius with 16 vertices, which is perfect for me. Now what I need to do is I need to change the orientation of this. So I need to rotate on the x-axis 90 degrees so I flatten this out. Now if I kind of scroll wheel around here, what we can see is where my circle is here, but you can see that my circle is positioned quite forward in relation to my locker base. So I want to, using my Z translate manipulator, drag this whole thing back so it's further towards the back of my base. So then I'm going to go back into top view. And now what I want to do is I want to position my cursor right on the Y axis and on that same sort of grid line as I have my circle. And now if I go into edit mode, I can then spin this. So if my circle is selected and I'm in vertice selection, it has to be in vertice selection, and my cursor is on the y-axis, then I just simply need to spin. And I'm going to not spin 60 steps, but I'm going to spin, let's say, about 18 steps. And I don't want 360 degrees, I want 180 degrees. So now I have what kind of looks like a hook, but clearly I'm going to have to pull this down. So I have this one end already selected here. So what I can do is I can simply drag and pull this down into my lock a little bit. Now I'm going to turn this onto wireframe again so I can see a little easier, but I'm going to pull this in just a little bit here, but then I'm going to A to deselect all, B to box select, and I'm going to select this whole point over here. I'm just going to make sure I got all my points. I do. So I'm going to go back into top view, and I'm going to use my translate manipulator, but now I'm not going to pull down to here. I'm going to go right down. The reason being is I want this piece of the lock to be able to come out while this one still stays in my lock. Now let's take a look what this looks like when we go back into object mode and go out of wireframe. So what we see is we see a nice looking hook in the back side of my lock, and if I smooth it a bit, it will look even nicer. And so now we have very much what looks like a locker lock. Now what I'd like to do is I'd like to animate this so it pretends that we are doing a combination, and then when the combination is done, the locker opens, it turns around, and like closes again. So let's see how we can do that. So what I need to do first is I need to select my spinner. And once again, this little yellow dot here indicates what the rotation point is, and it's in the perfect spot, so I want it to rotate right around that center point. So at frame 1, I'm just going to I lock rot scale this into place. And then I'm going to go up, let's say 50 frames, which is about 2 seconds. And I'm going to rotate one whole turnaround, another turnaround, and then stop about here. And then I can lock rot scale that in place. And then I'm going to go up about 30 more frames, so a little over a second, and I'm going to go back the other way. So I'm going to rotate this way now, and a full turn plus a little bit, and maybe end it around here or so. Lock rot scale. And then I'm going to go to frame 100, and I'm going to do that little turn that we have usually at the end of the lock that comes to, I don't know, somewhere around here. I'm just making up some sort of combination, but lock rot scale. So if we look at this starting from frame 1, what we'll see is it spins the one way, and then it spins the other way, and then it comes back. So at this point, at frame 100, we have got our combination. So what we need to do though is, this is important. We need to lock into position at frame 100 our hook, because in a moment we're going to move the hook up, but we don't want it to be moving from frame 1 all the way to frame 125 moving up. We want to start right at frame 100 and then start moving up from there to 125. So at frame 100, while I have my hook selected in object mode, I'm going to lock rot scale. Then on frame 125, so about a second, I'm going to move it up. So I'm just using my translate manipulator to move this part up. Notice that this part stays in because I made it longer. And I'm going to lock rot scale. Then at frame 150, I am going to rotate. I'm going to rotate this 180 degrees on the y-axis. So I'm going to R, Y, 180 to bring this and open it up. And so then I can lock rot scale that. And then I'm going to go to frame 175. And I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to rotate Y 180 to bring it back. I'm going to lock rot scale that in place. And then I'm going to go to frame 200. And I'm going to actually physically bring this back down into the lock. And I'm going to lock rot scale that. So what this should look like then is, if I run from frame 1, what we'll see is we'll see the locker lock spin. I'm doing a film. So just give me 2 minutes. And then I'm going to basically run this. And so we see that it obviously doesn't, it goes right to 250. So remember, we need to change and end this and make it 200 here. So then it should run right to where it should want to be. So let's just look very quickly at how we can render this as an animation, which is what I would like you to submit to me if you're going to be submitting this in Google Classroom. So once we've got this, we can go back to frame 1. And I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to go to the render tool. And in here, there's 3 things we have to do once again. So the first is we have to set our output. So in the output, I need to choose this option, go to the C drive, into your computer animation, and I'll call this locker lock animation. And I will accept that. So I have that set now. That's the right output. Now remember, I need to change the PNG to an AVI JPEG. And I also need to make sure that my end frames is in fact correct, which it is, 200. So then I can then go up to animation, and now I can start to animate, and it will animate frame by frame. Now, one thing I forgot to do, and I should end my animation right now, is this. I'm going to escape out of this, but basically I forgot to set my camera. So bad on me. I would need to firstly go and Control-Alt-0, make sure my camera's set up, go into side view, and then pull back quite a ways so I can capture that, the view of this whole locker lock, and then just sort of move it over. And then once again, I need to go even further back. So I'm gonna have to go further back and then really capture that. So that's looking probably pretty good. I can also then make sure that my light is in a good position to sort of view that. And then if I did an F12, before I ever render, I can see that I'm going to be able to see it. So that looks better. Now I can go and run my animation again. And once again, then I would see my actual lock as it spins and everything else. Now I'm not going to sit here with this video watching for 200 frames finishes. But once you finish this, once again, you'll have a locker lock animation 0001 to 0200. That is the file you're going to want to submit to me in your Google Classroom when you're submitting this. Thanks for watching. Hope that made sense. If you have any questions, once again, do not hesitate to ask. Take care.